Dale Ahlquist. Welcome to Bookish Questions with Cultural Debris.
Thank you, Alan. What a pleasure to be with you.
It is great to have you back. We talked last year about all things Chesterton in a full-length interview, and I will point people to that. I'll have a link to that so people can listen. People who want to even hear more of the two of us talking. But it is no surprise you have a new Chesterton project that we didn't talk about at all last year. And that is this book.
Yeah, this one's been brewing for a while. There it is.
Oh, I'm sure it has, because it's quite a tome. Most of it is Chesterton, but a fair amount of it is you. So it's a beautiful book, by the way. It's just so beautifully done, and if you take the dust jacket cover off, it's there again. So I understand that there are some barbarians out there who remove their dust jackets and throw them away. That's in my opinion is probably a capital offense. But if they did that, they would still have the beauty of the book shining through for them. And I will also say it has one of my favorite features that I think probably all books should be required by law to have, and that is the ribbon marker, which I'm a big advocate of. So it is beautifully produced by the good folks at Word on Fire. But why do we need another edition of the Everlasting Man, Dale Ahlquist?
Well, I mean, you said it yourself. It's got a beautiful cover. It's got a ribbon. That's why we need a new edition. And finally, someone has come out with that. And what else is there to say? Truly.
Fair enough. We can close this interview now.
Okay. It's a good story, my story with this book, because this was the first Chesterton book that I read.
Yeah.
And other people have read The Everlasting Man as their first book, and a lot of those people never read any more Chesterton again after that. If you have not read any Chesterton, this could be an intimidating book. Not just because of his writing style, which is unique. He doesn't write like anybody else. But because he does throw out references as if you would, of course, know all those things.
Sure.
The number of references he makes to literature and historical figures and mythological figures and philosophers and ancient history and early Christian history and heretics. It's an incredible tour de force of demonstrating his knowledge. But Chesterton was so humble that he figured, well, yeah, everybody knows these things.
Sure.
And so one of the main reasons for doing this book is to explain all those references that he's making, because it really just bolsters his entire argument. But not only did we do an extensive job of footnoting the book, I have an introduction, and also each chapter has a commentary that I offer as well. So it will definitely guide the first-time reader.
There are the footnotes,
the person who's read the book before through this book in a hopefully very expansive way, and really help them get a lot more out of the book.
Right. I saw not only the footnotes, but you do have at the end of each chapter sort of a contextualization, I guess we will say. You're letting us read it, guiding us through reading it, and then telling us what it is we just read, so we can appreciate it a little bit better.
I should point out, too, that the footnotes, whenever possible, whenever explaining anything in the book, I try to use Chesterton as the source. I use another Chesterton work, another Chesterton essay to explain the very term he's referring to, or to expand on it. So it's as much pure Chesterton as possible. It's just bigger than the original version of The Everlasting Man.
Chesterton distilled. So how did this connection with Word on Fire, and of course they've been releasing beautiful editions of some other Catholic classics, so how did your connection with them for this edition come about?
I had been brewing an annotated Everlasting Man for a long time. It was a project that another gentleman and I had once attacked, but we just never finished it. And and so there were a lot of notes lying around. But then I was approached by Brandon Vaught, who is the content director at Word on Fire, who's also a very good friend of mine and a fellow Chestertonian in every way, a fellow convert because of reading G.K. Chesterton. And he said he basically offered me to do this job. They said they want to do a annotated Everlasting Man. They asked me to be the one to do it. And knowing that he was behind it, and of course Bishop Barron behind it, I knew I'd be in good hands. And they're just doing really good work, and they're turning things around quickly. So from the time I finished all the work to the time it became a book was relatively short, which is a great pleasure for an author.
Yeah, I hate to keep beating this drum, but it really is such a beautifully done, high quality book. I'm very impressed with what they're doing there as far as their level of production, and along with that, and I assume it's because they're an evangelistically oriented group, they're not charging a whole lot for these. They're considering the production level, they're quite affordable.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonably priced. A book of this quality from another publisher would be a lot more expensive.
Yeah. I think there's no question about that. So one of the things that you point out in the book, and that I think probably a lot of people may know the book for, is its impact on C.S. Lewis, who was famously, I guess, or / infamously, an atheist in his younger years, as perhaps a lot of that kind of World War I generation maybe was. But Chesterton reeled him in with Everlasting Man. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, C.S. Lewis was a fan of Chesterton's writings. He had several of his books, and mostly his collections of essays, and would have read him like anybody else at that time period in the newspaper. Chesterton was a journalist, and that's where most people had access to him. But a lot of his journalistic essays were then collected into books, and Lewis said that he was definitely one of his favorite writers, except for that that he sometimes talks about religion, and that was the one thing he didn't like about Chesterton, because C.S. Lewis really had no room for that in his outlook at that point. Well, then he read The Everlasting Man. It came out in 1925, and that was the book that basically changed his life, and he turned to Christ. He made a real profession of faith as a result of reading what he called the first what he calls the best defense of Christianity that he'd ever read. And of course, his great line, which is in his autobiography, Surprised by Joy, he says, a young man who's serious about his atheism cannot be too careful about what he reads. And that's it's a really good line. And consequently, all of C.S. Lewis's books really do pay tribute to Chesterton, because you see Chesterton's thinking in them, and you see how influential Chesterton was on Lewis's thinking. Mere Christianity, he's basically repeating the arguments that are in this book, The Everlasting Man. And so it's all there. Yeah, that without question is the most dramatic story concerning this book and another author. But my much less dramatic story is that it was the first book that I read of Chesterton's, and of course it put me on the path to the Catholic Church, which is something I never would have expected to happen.
Yeah, so this is kind of a nice culmination of that journey to bring this out, and in such a beautiful edition, and in a way, kind of a definitive edition of that. So that's going to be I know you have to be proud of that. You don't have to say you are, but you should be. So, of course,
it was very gratifying to see it come out. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Always being greedy for more. Are there any more beautiful Chesterton editions, perhaps in the on the back burner, or maybe even the front burner?
Yeah, I don't have any plans for anything like this with Word on Fire, but we do have some plans to bring out some more Chesterton material. I do have a book hopefully coming out from Ignatius Press in another year, which is the alternative autobiography of G.K. Chesterton.
Oh,
you heard that right, the alternative autobiography. And that'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. Perhaps we can visit when it comes out.
He wrote an autobiography, but we'll talk about it when it comes up. I'll just give you the little heads up.
Please tease it.
He wrote an autobiography. Yeah, and his autobiography is a very unsatisfactory book because he doesn't write about himself; he writes about other people. But throughout his myriad of writings, which we're talking about 7,000 essays. There's a lot of material there. He often will tell some story about himself, a recollection from his youth or some personal story. And what I did is gleaned all this stuff and put it together and have a new narrative of Chesterton's life told by himself in his own words.
Oh, very nice.
And it's very interesting. It doesn't...
It's really the first autobiography, then the first true autobiography. We've waited a century for Dale Ahlquist to unlock this for us. Was that something that was helped by the bibliographical work that was recently done? Because the new bibliography came out, I guess, was it last year?
Yeah, the bibliography came out last year. I just completed the manuscript, a few months ago, but it's something I've been working on for years, for literally decades. And as Geir Hosnes was finishing the bibliography, which is 3 volumes, a lot of I collaborated with him on a lot of work at finding some of these essays that were very obscure and from obscure publications. And and that's how I found a lot of this material. So Geir was helpful, but it was because I was helping him. We were working together on just tracking down all this
stuff.
The
bibliography, by the way, is extraordinary. I've got it over here in my bookshelf, but it's quite a monument to persistence and focus, I guess we will say, because it's just it's really pretty impressive. So I can't let you go without asking you if there's any update on the Chesterton canonization effort, which we touched on briefly in our interview last year, but something I'm always curious about.
Sure, there's no news to report except that we do believe there will be a bishop opening the cause within a year, probably.
Okay. Well, very good.
Getting a few ducks lined up, and I think it's going to happen pretty soon.
All right, very good. I'm glad to hear that. We will perhaps revisit that at a later date as well. Well, Dale Ahlquist, thank you very much for hopping on with me here. I will show people the book again from Word on Fire, which you can order directly from them. I guess you can also get it through Amazon and such places as that. Big thick book. It has a marker.
No, don't get it from any rivers in South America. Do not get it from a river in South America. Right.
So
get it from Word on Fire or from Chesterton.org.
All right, and yes, they will be very glad to send those to you. It's a beautiful book. Everybody needs it. And Dale Ahlquist, thank you very much for hopping on and talking to me. We'll talk again, I'm sure.
Great, Alan. Thank you. God bless.